Lesbian Representative Michele Rayner quits her congressional bid over DeSantis' alleged gerrymandering. Florida Democrat Michele Rayner-Goolsby, who would have been Florida's first out U.S. representative, suspended her campaign for Congress yesterday. She appears to be one of the victims of Governor Ron DeSantis' heavy hand in Florida's redistricting process. Rayner will now seek re-election to her seat in the Florida House of Representatives. Rayner was one of America's strongest voices in opposition to Florida's Don't Say Gay initiative and many other LGBTQ+ issues. Here was her announcement. Watch this.
Hi, everyone. This is State Representative Michele Rayner. As many of you know, about a year ago, we launched a campaign for Congress right here in Pinellas County. It has been the joy of mine and Bianca's life to be able to talk to neighbors throughout the county, talk to community members, and find out what's really important to them. It's been a special joy for me because I grew up here right in Clearwater. But as many of you know, we have a governor and we have a legislature that is out of control. They have drawn maps that are racist, that are partisan, and that I believe, and quite frankly, many people believe, are illegal. And that's what makes it difficult to have a free and fair election in Pinellas County for this congressional seat. So friends, this is what we're going to do. We're going to take our fight back to Tallahassee. Many of you know that I've recently been called Ron DeSantis' worst nightmare. And I'm his worst nightmare because I speak truth to power, I hold him accountable, and I fight for the people. And that's what I'm going to continue to do in the State House. So friends, we're going back to the State House. I hope to earn your support. I hope that you'll get involved because this election is the most vital election of our lifetime. Thanks so much for your unending support and your encouragement. I'm so grateful for this journey. Let's continue on.
It's a trifecta you just watched: Black, woman, queer. Rayner was to the point on her belief that Governor DeSantis, running for re-election in November and one of the top GOP presidential candidates floated for the 2024, is homophobic, racist, and partisan to win an election to the point of being illegal. Of great significance, Rayner was a leading candidate for this U.S. congressional seat of Charlie Crist, who is running for governor against Ron DeSantis. Joe Biden won Crist's district by 4 percentage points, even though former President Donald Trump won Florida. DeSantis vetoed a map drawn by the Florida legislature, and then pressured lawmakers to pass a map his staff drew up. That changed Crist's seat from a Biden district to one Trump won by 7 percentage points. This then split Rayner's home base in St. Petersburg into 2 districts. The Black community in St. Petersburg is split under the new map. A Florida judge has ruled that DeSantis' map was to be thrown out as unconstitutional for diminishing the ability of Black voters to elect candidates of their choice. The state is appealing that decision. But regardless, because of the proximity of Florida's August primary, candidates for Congress must qualify by noon on June 17th, and the courts are only considering throwing out selected districts, and time will essentially run out for Rayner. Political observers today are discussing the fate of Rayner and other diversity candidates and what they will face in the redistricting that the governor is defending. It likely could have dramatic consequences on the midterm elections this November in both Florida and in Washington. Closer to home, Rayner did announce she still intends to run for office. She was elected to the Florida legislature in 2020. She now intends to seek re-election to the Florida legislature in her House district, which was also redrawn this year, but remains safely Democratic. Rayner, what do we think?
It's heartbreaking, but what do we expect from DeSantis? It's not surprising. This behavior, I mean, it's horrible that she's a victim of this, but it's not surprising.
Yeah, political gerrymandering, I don't like it, but it's a fact of political life, and it has been in America for more than 200 years. But racially motivated gerrymandering is absolutely illegal and totally unconstitutional, except for the fact that we clearly now have a U.S. Supreme Court that is going to rubber stamp any map that comes their way as an issue.
I'm curious, Sigourney, being a person of color, you watch a face that I'm sure you can identify with, not only from being a woman and being black and being queer. What's your reaction to what you hear her say?
Honestly, it's so many feelings that are coursing through me right now. Number one, the fact that she can't run is upsetting because of what Ron DeSantis is trying to do. It is obviously racially motivated. It is trying to divide up. It's trying to divide up so that way his candidates can actually get in, and there are more Republicans instead of more Democrats, because they would go against him and what it is that he's trying to do. And she said it herself, she is his worst nightmare. And just in that clip, I felt that. I felt it 100%.
You know, for clarity to your point and Representative Rayner's point, the district, Charlie Crist district, he's the sitting U.S. congressman in this district right now running against DeSantis for governor. In one fell swoop, the DeSantis map changed the district 11 points. 4+ for Biden to 7+ for Trump. In one fell swoop. It has nothing to do with candidates, just the profile makeup. And Jeff, I'm curious in terms of your perspective. You're the director of the National Task Force dinner in Miami Beach in October, and the National Task Force is designed. This is core red meat for the task force. Your thoughts about what her announcement means?
First of all, her announcement makes me as well very sad. I think we don't have enough representation of LGBTQ plus people in not only the Florida legislature and in our federal government. The campaign this year that the task force gala is going to support is the Queer the Vote campaign, which is going to be around motivating our community to get out and vote. And we have said it here so many times over and over again. Our community is not talking about this. If you go down the street to Wilton Manors and ask them who is Michele Rayner and what happened to her today, I bet you probably only 2 out of 10 people may know that story. So find these candidates that are out there supporting our issues. You know, donate some money to her campaign, donate some money to other candidates. We may be faced right here in Broward County with having no LGBTQ plus representation out of our county. And we are, as you just stated, the seat of LGBTQ plus people, not in Florida, not in Broward, in the country. So please find these candidates, and this is very disturbing, and we need to support them.
You know, it's an amazing observation. We are dedicating a very significant amount of time at Queer News tonight to this story, which sadly, I think you're right, maybe 20% of our community knows about, but the story is gigantic for us. We're getting ready to show you an interview. She has been interviewed with everyone in America today because of this. And she kindly said, wait, I want to talk to queer people. And of course, she's come to Queer News tonight to discuss these dramatic changes and the issues that are being faced. We've had this interview with Florida's first out queer black woman statewide representative. This is an amazing interview. Watch this. This is a special interview for Queer News tonight. We now welcome State Representative Michele Rayner. Michele, welcome to Queer News tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. It's good to be back with you, Al.
I've talked to you a number of times. Every time I talk to you, I get more and more excited about where the queer world is in politics. Yesterday, let's jump right into it. Yesterday, the news was a little tough for us in watching some of the history that potentially could be made from your candidacy for U.S. Congress. We've just showed your statement. Tell us a little bit about what has happened and what's going on in Florida to have you've been working on this for a year, to make the change that you announced yesterday. Tell us a little bit about that.
I mean, listen, Al, you and I have talked so many times about how we have a governor and a Republican-led legislature that is completely out of control. And we saw that with the drawing of these maps. As you well know, that 2 Black districts got cut out. So Black representation was diminished, and only because of an injunction that was filed and upheld by a Republican appointed judge, one that was appointed by Rick Scott and Ron DeSantis, do we now have one of those Black seats back. In the district, particularly I was running in, Black votes were packed into across the bridge into Tampa. So you have a city of St. Pete, which I know you're well familiar with, Al, that you literally split it in half, and you take part of my House district, which is majority Black, and you take it and then you move it across the bridge, which the Fair Districts Amendment said you can't do, and you pack it into a safe Democratic seat. And what we've seen with the governor and his drawing of the map is that, first off, the first introduction of this map was on Martin Luther King holiday weekend. So I don't believe it's coincidental. Other than that, there has been literally racist and partisan gerrymanders that is happening with these maps. It makes it difficult for people to have a free and fair election when you have maps that are drawn to favor a party, to favor a Republican governor who ultimately wants to run for president and wants to be able to run on the fact that he gave the Republican Party, hopefully knock on wood, not the House, but if that should happen, that he gave them back the House.
It's let's put a fine point on the observation that you made about gerrymandering. The Florida legislature proposed a map that was vetoed by the governor. And then the governor and his staff drew up their own map and said, no, this is where the districts are going to be. And by all reports, a tremendous amount of pressure to accept that. A portion of it has been struck down by the courts already, and Florida is appealing it. But in terms of the gerrymandering observation that you make yesterday in your decision about running for the U.S. Congress, this was Charlie Crist's seat. And Charlie Crist, as everyone knows, we've reported in the story tonight that he's running for governor. For the Democrats. He's former governor and was a Republican when he was a governor, and he's running for governor again, and now as a Democrat. So his seat was won, even though Donald Trump carried the state of Florida. The district that you're running for was for Biden by plus 4 points. And after the change of the redistricting from Governor DeSantis, it turns into, in the exact same election, plus Donald Trump by 7 points. That's an 11-point swing in your district. How do you explain that other than your claim of gerrymandering? What other possible observation is there?
There's no reasonable explanation, but it's gerrymandering. That's pure and simple, plain and simple. There's no other reason. You know, the counsel for the governor was like, when he was asked a question, do you know what the partisan makeup of the district is? He said, no, I don't know. I don't know what the district is made of. I mean, Al, we're not dumb. We are far more intelligent than the governor gives us credit for. He obviously knows what the partisan makeup of this district is. That's why he drew the district the way he did. That's why he split up a city when the law says that if a county or a city can be contiguous and be held together, that is what you're supposed to do.
When you heard the news of the governor's new election map, did it? So I hear the absoluteness in your voice of the conclusion, but were you surprised when you saw, like in the congressional district that you were going to run in? Did it surprise you that it was so overwhelmingly gerrymandered?
Listen, I gotta tell you, yeah. I mean, I knew that the governor was out of control. We saw it with the Don't Say Gay. We saw it with the Stop Woke bill. We've seen it with the abortion ban. We've seen it with the transports bill. I knew he was out of control. I did not know that he was going to be blatantly illegal and try to rig an election and really be very clear, this is about electoral college votes for him as well when he is going to try to run for president. I didn't know, and I should have known, right? And I think I kind of did in the back of my mind, but I didn't know that he was going to be this blatantly just in our faces with it. And what I've been telling people, Al, is you can't keep saying that that won't happen, the worst won't happen, this won't happen. They're not going to go that far because they are doing it right now in front of our faces.
Yeah. Yesterday, I was struck in a quote, and I'm getting ready to repeat it back to you for comment from you. You said, quote, "But as many of you know, we have a governor and we have a legislature that is out of control. They have drawn maps that are racist, that are partisan, and that I believe, and frankly, many people believe, are illegal. And that's what makes it difficult to have a free and fair election in Pinellas County for this congressional seat," end quote. Ooh, powerful words. You can digest those now. Any new feelings about the observation that you made there?
Listen, I stand by what I said. And the reason I think I stand by it even more, I'm sure that you will be reporting on this. The governor appointed a new Secretary of State. He appointed Corey Byrd, who is a representative that I've served with. This is the same man who has cussed at Black legislators on the House floor, who is homophobic, who is transphobic, who I believe, has racist tendencies. His wife is a QAnon supporter. They've also supported January 6th insurrectionists. And this is the man that's going to be in charge of the election police. So you can't tell me that this is not a ploy to rig an election. So whenever the person that screams the loudest about rigging an election, they're the ones that are actually doing it. And all of the malfeasance that we've seen when it comes to the elections has been found in the Republican Party. It has not been done by Democrats. It has not been done by MPAs. It's not been done by moral-minded people. And once again, Al, this is happening in front of our faces. And we have a governor that does not want to give us a free and fair election.
Representative Rayner, when you say that as clearly as you say it, and with as clearly we're watching what we're watching, it begs to ask the question, is he unstoppable? Does he basically feel that there is no control on his whim of desire and the power of the acts that the governor is wielding? Is he unstoppable?
He's unstoppable, Al, because you have a Republican legislature that bends to his whim. I've spoken to Republican leaders that knew that this map was unconstitutional, that they didn't support it initially when it was initially drawn, but said they didn't want to get primaried, said that they didn't want their budget items struck. The Senate president had a primary opponent until this was all wrapped up. And all of a sudden, now that this is wrapped up, he no longer has a primary opponent. When you have a governor that rules with an iron fist and you don't have people who stand up and say, like, we can't have this, you can't do this, he does become unstoppable. And the only way that he is not unstoppable is if folks organize, if they mobilize, find a political home, and they vote like never before, like their lives depend on it. Because what I believe the governor and the Republican Party is doing is, as they are snatching our freedoms away, snatching them away, they're not working on affordable housing. They're not working on food desert issues. They're not working on living wages. Because if I can keep you struggling, you won't realize that I'm snatching your freedom away as you are just trying to survive. And that, I believe, is a very intentional and a very insidious way that the Republican Party is doing their policy.
I want to jump into several of those issues that you just discussed. But before I do, let's pull the Democrats right out on that hook. We have at Queer News Tonight, and in the queer community, we've talked about the they and the othering that seems to be occurring, and that we find someone that is vulnerable, they create a argument against that vulnerability, and then they use it to try to win an election. Now, we have talked about this at Queer News Tonight for a long time. Really started in 2016, actually. But the question is, the Republicans seem to be so much better at winning these marginal but ridiculous culture wars that they're setting up. And it seems like the Democrats are just getting their teeth kicked in. To all of the LGBT viewers that are watching you right now, help explain why the Democrats are not doing a better job standing up against this.
So we're family, so I'm going to be transparent. I think we play too nice. Especially think about what happened, what's the numbers look like in DC right now. If the Republicans had the numbers that we had, if they had the White House, if they had the House in a 50-50 Senate, there would be no asking for anything. There would be no trying to work with us on anything. There would be no, let's see if we can have bipartisanship. They would ram everything through. So that's number one. Number two, we don't turn the messaging back on them. Number three, Republicans knock all year, all off-cycle years. They're constantly communicating to voters, and we're not doing that. And the message of, I'm not a Republican, you should vote for me, is tired. I vote. I am a voter. I am a lifelong voter. I have voted in almost every election cycle, barring me being out of the country, and they may not have gotten my absentee ballot. I vote. And even for me, I don't want to hear that you are not a Republican, so let me vote for you. We've got to give people something to vote for. We've got to give them a vision. And that is where I feel a lot of folks are lacking. And there's not that clear, distinct vision in our party. And so for me, whatever office that I'm running for, I'm always giving people a vision, something to grasp onto, because I know that's how we got President Obama. He gave us something to believe in, and then he delivered on it. Now, he couldn't do everything, he's president, but he delivered on it. And that's the thing that I think that our issue is. We are trying to be people's friends. We are trying to play too nice. And we have people who have shown us that they are ruthless and they will deny our very humanity to get what they want.
Representative Rayner, with the observation you just made of how they do it and how the Democrats do it, use your best crystal ball, if I can ask you to do that. What's going to happen the morning after the midterms? You and you're going to be one of the first people I interview the morning after the midterms. And what's your crystal ball saying today, and what do you think you'll be saying the Wednesday after the midterm election?
Woo, Al. Oh my gosh. Wow, you really want to go here. This is a loaded question. My hope is that we will hold on to the U.S. House. My hope is that we will have a Democratic governor. My hope is that we will win more seats in the Florida legislature. That is my hope. I believe that we have got to run like never before. The pessimist in me is like, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if we're going to be able to pull this off. But the hopefulness in me, the one that always wins out over the pessimist, believes that we can do it and it's not too late. But we have to work like never before. And that is my charge to folks who are running for office. That is my charge to folks who are involved in this political sphere. That is my charge to volunteers and organizers. I mean, I've told people today, listen, if you need me to come to where you are at to help you and to charge people up, and we need to put out a press release so the press will come and talk to us and we can find out what's going on. Listen, let me know. I will come. But we've got to, the very thing you have up, organize, mobilize, find a political home and vote. I'm hopeful, but we have got, to put in, we've got to swim hard to the wall until November.
One last question that relates to that and your challenge, the optimism I hear in your voice, which I appreciate. Do you see the LGBTQ community in Florida and around the country? Are they accepting the challenge? Do you see them moving in the direction?
I do. I do believe they are. I had while I was running for Congress, I was able to work very closely with the Equality PAC, and which is basically the equality LGBTQ arm of the LGBTQ caucus in Congress. So I was working very closely with Congressman Takano and Congressman Cicilline, and watching what they've done with impacting LGBTQ voters and candidates, and working with their amazing executive director, Jeff Larrabee. And there are pockets of us that are really getting it. But I want to say this, and I want to be very clear to our community. When the leaked opinion came out about the ban on abortion, they talked about same-sex marriage. They brought up Lawrence v. Texas. It is not going to stop at abortion. They are coming for us next. So we better be about our business as well. We better be concerned in making sure we elect folks who align with our values and our vision, folks who are part of our community for real, because there's a MAGA Republican running up in Pensacola who is queer, but he is a Donald Trump Republican. So just because you make, as the Black community says, just because you skin folk don't mean you're kin folk. And it's the same for our community. And so we've got to get serious about it, because our rights are on the line as well. Marriage is on the line. The ability to adopt children is on the line. The ability to show up and be protected in the workplace is on the line. So all of these things are on the line, and we have got to get serious. And we can't take it for granted. We thought we won because, like, why can't they get married? Marriage is the floor. It's most certainly not the ceiling. We have a long way to go.
Absolutely, heard loud and clear. I want to take a moment to talk about one of the good things that happened yesterday. You made the decision that you're going to fight to go back to the State House of Representatives, representing your district in Pinellas County. I talked to the LGBTQ world and politicians and political people in our world. You were very unusual to me. I've heard you speak a number of times. I told you, my goodness, you're a firebrand. I felt like I was in Black church in one of your speeches. You're kind of a trifecta for our community and here in Florida. You're Black, you're a woman, and you're queer. I'm curious, in making that observation that I just made to you, we've talked so much in 2022 about Don't Say Gay and the effect of what's going on and what will go on with our children and our young people and our students. It seems to me you represent everything that we want to say about gay to young people, and they're going to watch you and they're going to impression of the possibilities. So when we other someone, the other turns out to be really great. How does that wash over you, and what kind of representation do you walk through every day going, people, especially young queer women, children, are watching me? How does that wash over you?
I mean, I was raised to much is given, much is required. My mother and father, repeated that over and over in my house, right? And I will tell you, for me, I don't take it lightly. I don't take it lightly out. I was saying to someone just before we spoke that representation isn't just about I'm Black, queer, and cisgender woman. It is literally about what do you do in that space. And so I know that I am blessed to be in rooms that other folks are able to be in. So I can talk about why, for example, abortion, why it matters to women, why it matters to Black folks, and why it matters to the LGBTQ community in ways that are intersectional. And, we know, for example, LGBTQ community, we have cisgender women and we have trans men. We have non-binary folks who are able to carry children, who are able to get pregnant. So abortion is very much a part of our community. As far as Black people, Black women, we understand that Black women have been basically shackled to the foundation of this country, have never really had the self-determination to make choices about their reproductive health. And reproductive justice looks like being able to make the decision to have a child, to not have a child, and if you have that child, to have that child to be brought up in a safe and loving environment. And then obviously just as a woman, as a cisgender woman, there is a right to privacy that's enshrined in our state constitution. There's a right to privacy that I get to make choices with my doctor and with my partner. So I just talked about one issue intersectionally, right? And think about all the other things that we deal with. That if we're talking about affordable housing, if we're talking about food deserts, if we're talking about environmental justice, what does that look like? And how can I speak to those things intersectionally? So it's not just about, yes, I'm the first, and yes, I'm the only Black queer woman that has ever held public office in Florida, but most certainly in the legislature, but being able to do something with that representation. And I believe what I bring benefits everybody because, they say a rising tide lifts all boats.
Interesting. So you're running for House, it was District 70, I believe?
It's now 62. It's now 62
62.
because
All
we
right.
were also redistricted as well.
Yeah. Before we end, we for sure appreciate again Representative Rayner has accepted this invitation to talk to us just almost immediately after this announcement of news. The demands on her today from national media are great, and so we really appreciate you supporting queer media. We think that's important.
Yes.
I want to remind our viewers of something else that you said yesterday, and then I want to ask you to comment on it. You said, quote, "We're going to take our fight back to Tallahassee," meaning now we're going back to Tallahassee. Many of you know that I've recently been called Ron DeSantis' worst nightmare. I am his worst nightmare because I speak truth to power, I hold him accountable, and I fight for the people. And that's what I am going to continue to do in the State House, end quote. Powerful words there, and I'm sure the governor heard that Michele Rayner is coming back.
Yeah, I don't think he's happy. I will tell you, and I think I've shared this with you, Al. There was a time when we were in the, vaccine distribution phase, and there was all of the controversy with the governor giving vaccines to, his supporters. And I was doing interview after interview after interview. And his legislative affairs director at the time called me and said, "Listen, your tweets and your interview, they're really hurting the governor's feelings." And I just started laughing. I was like, what's hurting my feelings? That the people that I serve aren't able to have access to vaccines. The people that I serve are disproportionately affected by COVID. So when you can get a COVID site in my district or in a district that folks are being disproportionately affected by COVID, then I'll stop doing interviews. How about that? And later that afternoon, I had a COVID site in my district.
Oh, interesting. I have to ask you in conclusion to your decision on what you're going to do next, specifically about the LGBTQ community. It seems like we're watching, in many ways, a clash of titans, fighting at a field level that is far beyond most of us in the LGBTQ community over issues that are beyond what we feel is our direct control. And I have noticed at Queer News Tonight when we do focus conversations in varieties of different ways, the preeminent issue that seems to always come out and has for many, many, many months, almost all of 2022, in the LGBTQ plus community, because of all of the attacks, historic issues of attack both in Florida and nationally, the reaction seems to be overwhelmingly fear. And the fear in the LGBTQ plus community is uncertainty and the unknown, and why is this happening, and why are we being formulated as attack and culture wars, etc. Your decision yesterday to withdraw your candidacy for U.S. Congress, return to the State House, what would you say to the LGBTQ community in terms of the fear that they have, that they're exhibiting, and what would you tell them about what we're watching and what they should do next?
I would tell our family that I understand, that I am very clear why you are afraid. I understand that you don't know what you're going to wake up to in the next day or next day after the day after. But I will tell you this, that as long as there is breath in my body, that I will fight with us and for us. And while you are scared and while you are uncertain, this is the time that we cannot back down. We cannot, take our foot off the gas. We cannot stop pressing forward for the things that we need to live equitable lives. And so I would ask our family to join me, to trust me, and to, as you have up there, organize, mobilize, find a political home, and to vote. And know that as long as there's breath in my body, and quite certainly, and quite frankly, my wife's body, that we will stand and fight with you, and we will be with you. And that's what I would say.
And well said it was. We really appreciate the time that you've given us today, Representative Rayner. This is a very important subject, and the subject matter is not really ultimately so much about you, but of what is going on in our world. We remind all of our viewers, you are listening to the first out queer black woman that represents in the state House for the state of Florida. Michele Rayner, Representative Michele Rayner, thank you very much for being with us at Queer News tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. I always come when you call, Al, so thank you so much.
Thank you. LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Laura are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out television network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure